For more analysis on this week's news from Washington, we're joined by CBSNews.com's senior political reporter, Brian Montopoli. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Sure.
So do you think the Obama administration will make any headway on this peace process?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to have a lot of optimism about the peace process. Netanyahu's response to what the president said, I thought, was a little bit surprising, because what the president said about going back to those borders with land swaps is what everyone's been talking about when they're talking about the peace process. And Netanyahu talked about making painful concessions, but it's not clear what those concessions are. So realistically, the peace process isn't looking very good. Now, I will say that I have not seen Congress as unified as it was in Netanyahu's speech ever.
I wanted to ask you about that. Why do you think he got such a warm welcome?
Well, look, almost every member of Congress is on the side of Israel, whether that's about ideology or it's about, frankly, the fact that a lot of campaign donations come from pro-Israel folks. It's hard to say, but the reality here is that Congress is unified, more unified than it is on almost any other issue, behind Israel, and that sends a real message to the Middle East, I think, that America stands with Israel and sends that same message to Israel.
Let's switch gears now and talk about the Republican nomination when it comes to those running for president. Mitch Daniels says that he's not going to run. Newt Gingrich is answering questions about, what, a $500,000 jewelry bill? It's getting kind of odd when it comes to those specifics, but do you think someone out the blue is going to jump in this?
I think the field is set. I mean, the Republicans you talk to seem to be suggesting that it's probably going to be maybe Mitt Romney, Tim Pawlenty, one of those two guys, maybe John Huntsman, the moderate former Utah governor. But that seems to be the field. Now, Michelle Bachmann might get in. We've got folks like Rick Santorum. But the reality is, this is a field that a lot of Republicans aren't terribly excited about, and the people they are excited about, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, folks like that, say they're not going to run. So right now it's shaping up to be a field that Republicans are not terribly enthusiastic about. Now, who knows what will happen? In 1980, as a prominent Republican pointed out to me, in 1980 they were casting about for another candidate too, and that was the year that Ronald Reagan was elected. So we'll see how things play out, but right now there's not a lot of enthusiasm, and it doesn't look like there's a white knight coming.
Any chance Newt Gingrich could be that white knight?
I wouldn't put my money on Newt Gingrich. I mean, the fact of the matter is, even more important than this Tiffany's thing, which is embarrassing for him, is his broadside against Paul Ryan's Medicare plan. I mean, you have a plan where all but 4 House Republicans voted for it. This is a plan to turn Medicare into a voucher system. Very controversial. And Gingrich comes out and attacks it as right-wing social engineering. You don't attack all but 4 Republicans in the House when you want to be the party's nominee. That was a major mistake. Gingrich has a problem where he doesn't have a real ability to sort of shut his mouth when he needs to. He really goes off script a lot of the time, and that hurts him. And I don't think there's a lot of enthusiasm among Republicans right now for his candidacy at all.
Speaking of Medicare, Tim Pawlenty went after Medicare. Speaking in Florida, no doubt, that and Social Security. A lot of senior citizens live there. It seems like he's not afraid to go after the so-called third rails, if you will.
Well, that's his pitch. His pitch is, I may not be flashy, I may not be Barack Obama, but I'll tell you the truth. Now, as messages go, it's not bad, but it's also not great. I mean, it's not change you can believe in. So Pawlenty is sort of the, I've been calling him the just good enough candidate for a lot of Republicans. I mean, the fiscal conservatives are grudgingly getting on board. The social conservatives are grudgingly getting on board. He's sort of the candidate where it might end up with Pawlenty. People will live with it. He hasn't been generating a lot of excitement. People don't just get very enthusiastic about Tim Pawlenty, but that could change, and he's been laying the groundwork for a campaign, and I think he's probably the biggest threat right now to Mitt Romney.
Speaking of entitlement programs, it seems like they played a big role in the election in Western New York.
That election was a big deal. Here's why. You've got an election where it's a very conservative district. It was expected to easily go to the Republican, Jane Corwin. It didn't. It went to the Democrat. And what that says is that this Medicare vote was very important. Now, Republicans will say this is just one district. There was this independent candidate, Jack Davis, running. But the reality here is that the polling suggested that Medicare was the most important issue in the race. This is a district where I think 40% of the voters are age 55 or older. So you've got all these older voters. They're concerned about what the Republicans are doing to Medicare, and it's a conservative district that went to a Democrat. What the Democrats hope is that next year, in the 2012 election, that's going to happen all over the country, and they're going to take back the House.
That was a congressional election. Let's talk about the president for a moment. He's been in Europe, but at the same time, we've got this disaster in Joplin, Missouri. So should he have left? Should he have cut that trip short and come back to the U.S.?
There are people who say he should have. I mean, this is an important trip. The president has not been in Europe for a long time. They're trying to get Europe to take some of the world's security responsibilities that America deals with. And so there is a reason for him to be there. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people are saying, we've got this disaster going on, and why isn't the president here at home? Now, he's going on Sunday to visit, so he's going to be there. And realistically, if you're dealing with this crisis now, you're not that concerned about the president. But the fact of the matter is, when the president is abroad, when a situation like this occurs, it's inevitably not something that looks very good.
Yeah, it's over 100 people dead, and we were just discussing a little bit earlier, he was seen at a ping pong event, the president.
I might have canceled the ping pong event.
Yeah, all right, Brian Montopoli, we do appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.